Oh my gosh, Familia, I am so starstruck right now. We have the star of X-Men Origins Wolverine, Lynn Collins, aka Silver Fox herself. Hey, Lynn.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, I am fanboying out right now.
I'm really excited to talk about this because this movie, Wolverine Origins, right?
Yeah.
It was a bit controversial when it came out. People weren't sure if they liked it or not. I mean, of course, I think X-Men fans, we want any movie, like we don't care, right? But it's an opinionated world, and I think, yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, well, listen. There is no doubt that X-Men fans and comic book fans in general took to the internet back in the day. They went on their MySpace and wrote a rigorous blog post about it. But there was something that was unanimous, and that was your performance as Silver Fox.
Oh,
I mean, you know that, right? Come on, you know that.
I had a great time with this role. I will say that. So thank you so much. I mean, as actors, I don't want to speak for all actors, but like there's definitely always an insecurity about, you can't make everybody happy in your performances. And I remember with this part native element of it really was, I'm part native. This was like a role that I was like, I really want to make some significant, like, I don't know, impression here. So thank you for saying that. We definitely within the shoot, there was like a couple of rehearsals where we were trying to make the script work in a way where we were like, okay, is she a mutant? Is she not a mutant? Like, what is, because her power is, being able to touch someone and affect how what they think and what they do. And I'm like, isn't that every woman? I don't know. We had like a lot of conversations about
Yeah.
how to make it work. And the original script was written by David Benioff. It was this beautiful, lyrical, very noir, dark romance,
Yeah.
in the original script. Kayla, at the end, when she, realizes that she basically has to die or it's going to like affect him forever, she walks into the ocean a la like Ophelia and dies. We actually filmed that scene.
Stop it, really?
Which that's a whole nother
Yeah.
story, which we can get to at some point. But yeah, it was. And then we had some feedback from Fox, and they weren't happy with Gavin's direction. And I think they wanted more like blow them up, guns a blazing. And so they brought in Dick Donner about halfway through the shoot, and the script was like completely like changed and altered. So we finished the shoot, and then still so many cooks in the kitchen, nobody's really happy with it. We end up having to do 3 weeks of reshoots
Mm.
so in Vancouver. So it was very pieced together, I think, in many ways. And I think that's what the criticism came from, is that it wasn't that original script. Everything was changing to satisfy the studios. And um you can't please everybody, and I think that this movie was like a really good example of that. And in some ways I wish like there had been some sort of guardian angel to be like, no, we're sticking to the script, just let us try to make it work. But that when there's so much money involved, right,
Yeah.
you kind of have to let it go. And so
Well,
yeah.
you guys are coming in pre-MCU where there is a formula for all this stuff. So you guys really were trailblazers with that. And I love the idea that she originally was conceived as this Shakespearean tragedy, this Ophelia figure, because I do think that does come across in your performance quite a bit. And when I was thinking about our talk today, I was thinking, okay, when I think of Wolverine Origins and I'm thinking of Kayla, what was that one moment where I was like, I'm on her side. I'm 100% in on this with her. And that's a scene where you are standing with Stryker, and Stryker's explaining to Wolverine that, like, oh, she's been, an informant this entire time. We faked her death. And the way you stood there, you weren't just standing there. It's not like you were just like owning the scene, but the emotion that was radiating off of your eyes. I mean, that was
Mm.
just brilliant. I mean, that is something that has gravity. And of course, we can always talk about the script. We can talk about, studio direction and stuff like that. But I think why this film still has legs, why people are still excited about these characters, why we're getting Deadpool 3 is because there was a lot of heart in the film, with Hugh Jackman's performance, but also yours and that emotion you brought to it.
Thank you. Um, so
AKA,
I
yes, you're fabulous. We love you.
thank you so much.
Too long didn't read.
Working with Hugh
Mhm.
is first of all, it was such an honor and a privilege. He's just such an incredibly generous human being. And of course, like you say, that translate to his acting. He is there to tell a story and he loves what he does and he loves the people he's hired and he such a team player. So there was so much support there, right? And like as an actor to really get in an emotionally vulnerable place, you need to feel safe. And I felt so safe with him at all times. And I also, by the time we were shooting that scene, it was really like, with these kind of movies, you don't know what's going to make it and what's going to be on the chopping block. And this, so much is going on, and the storytelling moments have to be so distilled, right? So it was like, how many feelings can I put in like one, this scene? Because there is the guilt, and then she loves him, and then he's basically telling her she's, an evil, betraying woman. All of that had to come through, and it had to come through fast, and it has to come through in like just a couple of like, so it was a challenge. But at the same time, like I say with Hugh, it's like he was right there. You know, some actors maybe like if the camera isn't on them, maybe you're going to be acting with the tennis ball, maybe you're going to be acting with the actor. You don't know. But with him, like he was right there
Oh,
giving it to me as if the camera was on him. And that kind of camaraderie and dedication and commitment, it just elevates everyone. And yeah, I'm proud of that scene. Sometimes it's like the less dialogue, the better. I
mhm.
mean, it's always depending on like the genre and what story you're telling, but it was one of those moments where it was just like, no, cut that line. I'll just stand here. That's all we need. And that is all we needed, in the end. It's like trusting the the simplicity that, you know, the story is there and the heartbreak is there. So thanks for saying that.
Well, and we were talking with one of the actors from WandaVision, and they were mentioning how, when you're in the scene, the most difficult thing to do is just to stand there and emote emotions. And usually you give your character something, like maybe they chew a little bit, maybe they're going to walk up and like pour a glass, but to actually stand there still and act. So bravo on that. My
Oh, thank
goodness.
you.
I mean, you own that scene.
Thank you. And let's give props to WandaVision. What a great, I've worked with Paul
Yeah.
Bettany, like that. I so enjoyed everyone's performance in that. I think it's so clever where all of this MCU, it really, it's like one of those situations where you're like, I wish I would have thought of that, you know, because it's so clever and so rewarding as a fan. I'm a huge fan of these movies and these TV shows. Like, those nuggets, those
Yeah.
Easter egg things. Like it's just rewarding to be like, oh, I caught that. Oh, I'm connecting that dot. It's really cool. It reminds me of like when you're reading a book series, when it's activating a different part of the brain, which I think is important.
Well, there's so many threads I want to pull on that you just said. One, I love that you are up to date with the MCU and you watched WandaVision because we would have loved to have seen Silver Fox come in the multiverse. Um, but secondly, speaking of book series, I am a huge fan of a one Sookie Stackhouse Southern Vampire mystery series, and you kicked off True
Oh,
Blood with Miss Anna Paquin, who was also Rogue. How
yeah.
was it like working on True Blood? And did you and Anna ever have like a moment where you're like, "Hey, our characters matter a lot to to Wolverine?
Well, I had not been cast yet. That so I did True Blood and then Wolverine.
Oh, was it before? Oh, wow.
Uh,
I didn't know. Okay.
but so Alan Ball had done a movie that I had been a part of, and I loved working with him. Another just like amazing creative genius. And at the end of the shoot, he was like, "So I'm doing this TV series. There's this character, it's based on books, and she dies within the first, couple episodes, but she's very in her sexuality and her power as a female, and it's really fun. And there'll be some nudity, but I think you're perfect for it." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And that's like how that began. And yeah, I really liked working with him. It was definitely a courageous leap for me to be like unapologetically like that part of myself, because right when we're in, you're bringing a part of yourself to everything you do, and it was very liberating. Anna, actually, we had a lot of people in common because she had been in New York like on doing some theater and stuff, so we had some crossover, so we were able to connect right away, but not on the Wolverine stuff because or the X-Men stuff, because I hadn't been cast yet.
I thought that first season of True Blood is probably event television, and everything was that first season. You were murdered by the mystery murderer,
Yeah.
if I remember the Bon
Yeah.
Tempest like mystery, and it was so good. So you also were in John Carter as well with your co-star Taylor in Wolverine Origins, and that did come afterwards, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we were cast in that after, I mean, I guess not soon after we did the reshoots. No, no, Wolverine had come out.
Mhm.
Yeah. But Taylor and I had, so at the time when I was shooting Wolverine, I was married to Stephen Strait, and Stephen Strait and Taylor had done, oh God, what was it called? Jules, no, who? I'm going to have to look this up. What was it called? The Covenant.
Oh yes! Oh my God! I can't believe I love the Covenant. Chase Crawford is in it.
Yes. And
Chase
Sebastian
Crawford.
Stan.
Yes. Oh my God! You're right. Sebastian Stan, who is Winter Soldier.
Yes. It's all coming full circle.
Stop it! I love that there are all these like Marvel stars that have done all these projects together.
Interesting, right? We're all
Yeah.
like coming up together in that way. Um, yeah. So John Carter was like, like this major coup, like getting cast was like huge deal, was for both of
Amazing.
us.
Yes.
Yeah. And they were like, you know, had such high hopes. We signed 3 picture deals. It was so, how do I say, like just so saturated with potential and hope. And what a crazy journey it was with it. When, I mean, really, when I started being like, wait, what's going on? Which is, it just like the marketing was so, the marketing strategy was so bizarre to me, because John Carter of Mars is a book series. There's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
14 of them that was written in like 1913 by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It was the, premier science fiction experience. There wasn't science fiction before these books. And so you have people like George Lucas and James Cameron, and these men grew up reading these books, which is why when you read John Carter, you see John Carter. It's like all these like Star Wars elements and all these things. But for some reason, the marketing department didn't educate the audiences on that what we're seeing is like a prequel to a genre. And yet in other parts of the world, they were bringing that information in previews, in articles. So there was like this level of like, I mean, I'm making an assumption just based on what I saw. It was like, and they're not going to give a shit. Where it was like, no, like give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. I think there was also, this was Pixar's first live action after Disney had acquired
Yeah.
Pixar. And the person who was head of Disney at that time, it wasn't like it was their baby, it had already been greenlit. I think that's a difficult situation to be in for everyone, where it's like, here's this $300 plus movie. You didn't choose to bring it on, but you have to make sure it's seen its life and it's getting its best. So I think that was a difficult situation. And I think Andrew Stanton, as director, I think there was maybe some conflict there. And also, we're talking about like content. This John Carter content had been circling in Hollywood for like 20 years.
Oh
People
yeah. I
wanting to,
remember reading that.
yeah, people have been wanting to make that movie. Tom Cruise met with Andrew Stanton and tried to lynch it. And like, it's just a lot going into it. And actually, we were shooting. Whoa, where were we? We were doing reshoots in LA, and Jon Favreau came because
Oh
John
yeah.
had wanted to direct it at one point. And then, here like Andrew Stanton gets it. But it was interesting because I don't know how, you know, I don't know how the film necessarily could have been made better,
Hmm.
because Andrew was telling the story that was written within the books.
Yeah.
I think like that piece, that this is based on books, you guys. This isn't like somebody trying to create a plot and be really like clever. We're trying to tell a story that's been written already. I think in that way, when you read the first book, which is called The Princess of Mars of the John Carter series, I think Andrew did an incredible job at bringing that book to life. Um, in that way, I thought it was a great success. But if you're looking at it like it's some standalone story that's been created out of nowhere, I can see where people would be like, wait, it goes on here and it's there. And where are we? Are we in Mars or we're in America? Like, where are we in the Civil War? Anyway, I personally, if it had kept going, I don't know. There's a part of me that's, I don't even know if I'd be alive. At the at sort of like in the middle of the reshoots, I started noticing some like health issues, and I ended up having like heavy metal poisoning. My
Oh
adrenals shut
no.
down. And I
I'm sorry. I thought you meant like you were talking more like longevity of like your character arc and everything.
No, I'm talking about like literally like
Oh
health.
my
Like,
God. Oh, I'm so
I ended
sorry.
up, because if you think about it, like everything that I was doing for a while was like spray tan, put a spray
Yeah.
tan on. Like you see my
Yeah.
skin, like
Yeah. You're
I'm
so fair.
I'm super whitey
Yeah.
whiters. Dye her hair black and put spray tan on her. That's what everyone wanted. And what we know now, like those spray tans are like filled with like heavy metals and all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
And I definitely, like, my body got to a point where it was like we have to make changes. I literally did like massive cleanses. I still have to periodically like make sure like I'm detoxing metals and stuff, because even the makeup that using over the years, now there's this amazing market of natural chem free products, including spray tans and hair dyes and all of that. That wasn't the case when I was making like True Blood and Wolverine and John Carter. So, I have to look at the silver linings of everything that happens in my life. And one of them is just like, well,
You would have been death by spray tan. Yeah, no, no, you are a treasure. We need you on this planet for as long as we can. And I have to tell you, I saw John Carter the day it came out. I was working at the Hachette Book Group. I used to be a book editor once upon a time
oh,
in a previous life. And we had just hired a new assistant, and he was a big John Carter nerd, and he dressed up as John Carter. And we were by Grand Central at the time, and we left and we went to the AMC in like Kips Bay to watch it, and we had such a wonderful time. So, I know the movie fell flat with audiences, especially in America. I agree with you about the marketing, but like I think there was a core audience there that truly enjoyed it, and seeing, the EA at the time, his face lighting up in his little his makeshift cosplay, just in the theater, like after work, we just had the best time.
I love hearing that. I mean, I personally enjoy watching the movie, not just because I was in it, but I've, shown it to my son and his friends, and to watch kids watch it is so cool. And, there is that, I don't know, whenever I watch it, I'm always just like, that love story is so
Yeah.
powerful, and when he's just trying to get back to her. And it's kind of, it gets even more heartbreaking because I knew what was going to happen in the second movie and like what
Mhm.
happens. And like, we weren't able to see that to fruition. And that was gutting. Um, but, I know the rights have gone, they were sold. And then I think they're like back at Disney now. So maybe somebody's going to, I don't know what brave soul would, you
Revive
know,
it on Disney Plus or something like that.
do a TV series. Like now the technology is, it exponentially like elevates itself. So they could do so much with it now.
Okay, well, I mean, think of your career though at large, and you were talking about showing John Carter to your son, but you also have a lot of other movies that have a huge cult following, like 13 going on 30. I mean, that's you're with the Hulk himself, Mark Ruffalo there.
I mean,
What
that crazy. Like, there's, you can, like, we talk about the Easter eggs that the MCU leaves us, but then, like, the actual, like, putting the people, like, who's done what with each other,
Oh,
kind of.
trust me. I know. And Elektra too with Jennifer Garner.
Yes.
What was 13 going on 30 like? And I want to ask a lot more Wolverine questions, but we have to ask about 13 going on 30 because that is a movie that has a huge cult following out there.
Yeah. It's a great film. I was, let's see, I was cast and we were I was living in LA when I was cast and it shot in New York.
Mhm.
And gosh, I had no, there was like a degree of separation between marks. So I had worked with Derek Cecil, who had done a TV show that Mark, what was that called? I'm not going to look it up. They were doing a TV show where they were like two cops. So
Mhm.
sort of, we had like a similar circle. So that was really cool. And then, of course, Jennifer, she'd been doing that TV series.
Alias. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was just so cool.
Oh,
It was, and she was right in the middle of ending her first marriage. And then Michael Vartan, who was
yeah.
in the show with her, that was all going on, that they were becoming like public.
Mm.
Um, this was kind of juicy. It was a it was a juicy set. Juicy.
I
Um,
love that.
and then at that time in New York I was also in the process of being cast as Portia in The Merchant of Venice. So I was, when I wasn't shooting, like I was like making tapes, sending it to the director. I had actually auditioned for like Jessica and Portia, and they were like having to decide on that. And then while I was there, also I like had a meeting with Al Pacino, and like everything was
Oh my
happening. It was
gosh.
like doing this huge movie and waiting to see like, was I going to get this other huge situation? It was a fun time.
Well, you have an incredible career, and like to be a fly on the wall on the set of 13 going on 30 with everything going on, especially also in your career. And you went on to do incredible things, and even like The Walking Dead. I mean, you are part of all of these like franchises, and you bring so much to them. I mean, when you look back on everything you've accomplished thus far, I mean, your mouth does have to drop a little bit, and I will say, I know it's luck, but it's also a lot of talent. You have so much talent in you.
Thank you. It is. I guess a lot of it is. I mean, especially at the beginning, you know,
Yeah.
like getting out of Juilliard, and I don't know, is it luck? I It's a strange industry because I chose something where like I literally have no control whether or not I work. All I
Yeah.
can do is do my absolute best, and hopefully the people who are casting, like I fit into some sort of idea that they have about the character. I It's interesting to hear it from your perspective. In many ways, I don't feel like I've peaked. I mean, I'm about to turn 47. I don't feel like I've like peaked
Yeah.
as like a woman or an artist or a celebrity. Like there's been almost, and then like either through my own sort of decision or something outside of my control, even like self-sabotage, just been like, no, I'm not ready for that, I don't
Mhm.
know, that exposure. One of the things when I was in Juilliard and even prior, like people would ask, like, well, what is it like? What's your goal when you get out and become a professional? And I was like, I want to work, back to back, but as such a chameleon that people wouldn't recognize me on the street, and people don't really care like who I am as a person. So I'm this like strange combination of like I want to be consistently working and I want to be recognized for the diligence, the commitment, and the vulnerability that I bring, but at the same time, like I don't want my actual personality and personal life to be scrutinized or exposed. So it's a straight, it's like a,
Imagine that. You just love the work and you want to consistently be working and not end up in the tabloids.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so because of that seed within me, I don't know, it's like I've kept a lid on it in a way. But now that my son, he just turned 9, and what motherhood has brought to my life is this kind of like fearlessness, because there's been so many situations where like vanity out the window, even birth in itself, you're just like blah,
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
you know that element of like unapologetic acceptance of
Yeah.
who I am, my flaws, my mistakes, the choices I've made, and that unapologetic acceptance of like what I've told you, like no, I want to keep chameleoning it. I want to,
Yeah.
continue to, my best work has not yet been done,
I
is what I'm
love
trying to
that.
say.
I
And
love
I'm
that.
at a period of time where I'm sort of back to like, the forever student, where I'm like, I just started taking guitar lessons. I don't know where that's going to lead, but this element of the best is yet to come, because as an actor, your instrument really is your psyche, it's your soul.
Hmm.
And mine has gotten so seasoned by life. It has not been an easy road, this life. And though gorgeous and beautiful, and like what we're talking about is these like peak moments that most people would be like, oh my God, how, but yeah, like the best is yet to come. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what those projects are going to be. There's a lot of things I'd like to produce even, but I'm excited for the future because, you know, you're always, what did they say? You're only as best as your last performance.
This is true. Like I have to tell you everything. I'm sorry. I'm staring at you with like these big eyes because I'm a benefit auctioneer. That's sort of my 9 to 5, and I'm at the mercy of the next booking, right? And exactly what you just said. I'm only as good as my last performance, my last like auction, and that would dictate how many gigs I get per season. And I had a really good season maybe in the fall. And I was talking to my booker and he was here like, "Oh, you've done so great. Like how can you possibly top this season because we had made X amount and I got great feedback." And I was like, "I hope this isn't me topping right now. I really just want to continue
Yeah.
going forward. I want to do something better and bigger and surely there must be more than what I've just already accomplished." And I think when I'm listening to you here and I see that drive and everything you do and already the repertoire that you have, like I Bring it, Lynn Collins. I cannot wait for
We're
what's
out,
to
right?
come. The best is yet to come.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like in general with life, like, we've sort of been conditioned in this society to think that like as we get older, somehow
Mm.
depleted. And I think what a lie. What a lie. What
Oh,
a
I
lie.
agree with you. I just turned 40 and I have
Oh,
to tell you, I love being 40. The amount of fucks I don't give, it's uncanny. Like,
right?
I
And like
literally just do not care what
and the
anyone says.
self-acceptance that happens
Mhm.
and the as far as like acting is concerned, you have to not I've never been like a what do you call like method actor. That's not really, but you are drawing from your life experience. And so therefore as an actor, you only get better, hopefully, as you get older because there's more life experience that's enriched like the soil that is
Yeah.
what you get your performance out of, right? But I think also like for everybody watching, whether you're an actor, you're not an actor, this element of being so proud. I mean, that you've survived this planet as long, for another birthday, because
Yes.
I think we have to acknowledge like life can be very difficult and very challenging and confusing. And we're at a point where we're so saturated with content because we're able to see what's happening all over the planet in one sitting.
Yes.
Our brains, our nervous systems weren't are having to adapt to that. And I think that we don't really acknowledge that enough, that we're in this since 2008 when these were created, right? We're in still in this zone of trying to as quickly as possible adapt to a completely different paradigm than
Yeah.
prior to 2008.
I have to agree with you. I'm so glad you said that because one of my qualms, and we're gonna get Familia listening at home. We're gonna get into Wolverine origins. We're gonna talk a little bit more, but I just want to kind of like piggyback off what we were saying. I say this all the time. We are living in this globalized world right now where like the second something happens, it's trending on your phone. And it's almost this like negative thing if you're not up to date the second something happens. And I have no problem anymore, especially after turning 40 and being like, I just heard about this. I am not informed. I'm not educated on this issue. And also, there's only so much my brain can handle, right? There's so much information that comes at you. And it's not even just global situations and news and stuff like that. It's also emails, right? Like emails, things for work, clients. I deal with, like maybe like 40 clients a season. All of them can email me, text me, find me, FaceTime me at any time. And at a certain point, you're like, well, I have a family, I have a husband, I have a mother with dementia. Like, I have a lot of things that I'm renovating a house. At a certain point, you're like, I'm capped. I don't have that. And I agree with what you said. Your nervous system eventually hits this wall where you're like, I'm fried, I'm frazzled. And it's such a curious world we live in.
You have to really create,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes so much initiative, right? To even get like the information you need. Like, but
Yeah.
you also just have to initiate creating that bubble around yourself, that like cocoon, so that you can like nourish your nervous system and not and still have at the end of the day something to give your partner, something to give your
Yeah.
children, something to give you. It's it really is a Rubik's cube. And so good luck to all of us, right? As we need to navigate now like AI coming in and it's
Oh,
going
I
to
was
speed things
about to say that.
up.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Because now, how do you know what's real or not? Someone sent me photos the other day of something that was fake, and I pride myself in being like, oh, that's AI. That's so AI. I saw a photo, and I was like, I thought this was real. You know what I mean? And it was not. It was 100% fake. It's just the world we live in. Lynn, you need to have your own podcast and your own show and like address these issues. Like, I'm sorry, you have such a wonderful demeanor and perspective on things. It's so incredibly refreshing to hear that from another human.
Thank you.
especially on an X-Men podcast. Especially on an X-Men podcast.
I would actually, I have a side gig that I
Yeah.
sort of put down in 2023. It was called, well, it started out as Seeking the Sacred Earth, and it was where, I was just sharing, like I was saying, like, we have to take initiative to find the information that we need because there's so much information out there. So when, my endocrine system started like failing me and my adrenals and the metals and all this, I had I was paving a road. Nobody had answers. Doctors didn't know what to tell me. And I really like did. I like took the hoe and was like, okay, where are we going? I mean, ultimately, like it's gonna be health and wellness. But
Yeah.
so I started getting, I don't know, like when Instagram, my agent and manager were like, you really do have to be a part of it. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. They're like, but if you want to stay current, like this is like, I was like, well, how do I engage with this social media world and it being a necessary part of my industry and my career in a way that I'm going to be able to like go to sleep at night and be like, okay. I mean, because the whole selfie idea for the longest time, I was like, I'm not taking a selfie. I'm not taking a picture of myself. That's like, that's not my job. I don't want a picture of myself like this. But now it's like this, it's already so integrated that if you don't take selfies, you're weird. It was this whole thing. So I ended up making videos about how I physically, emotionally, and spiritually
Yeah.
began healing. And I've always, I have some gifts that were confusing for a long time, like really confusing. And I basically educated myself on how to use them, how to create structure for something like what we would call like clairvoyance or like psychic gifts type of thing. So in 2020, I'd started sort of working with clients in 2019. And then when like the shutdown happened, I had this real opportunity to dive really deeply into this work with people. And I started, doing like readings and coaching sessions for clients
Really?
using my, ability to see, and had like these people were having just incredible results and it was great. And then, the world starts back up and, you know, I'm not a full-time psychic. I'm I'm a mother and I'm an actor. And so jobs started happening again. And I homeschool my son. And so it really just became more stressful than anything to try to, be doing sessions or making videos that were like, collective readings. So I just sort of moved away from it. And actually now, um, I can't say too much about it, but in the next couple of months, I'm going to be launching a website that's actually called thegoodwoo.com, which is actually going to be a hub where fans and celebrities can come together and do some like fun trading and buying and selling of things. So I'm really excited about that. And yes, you'll be the first. I will definitely be keeping you updated so you can let, everybody who's listening and know
Okay.
about it. It's very
Well,
exciting.
so we have we're really good friends with Kyle Thomas, who is an astrologer out in LA. He's on TMZ, People, Good Morning America.
Oh,
He's one of my best friends. He
yeah.
came to me, he slid into our DMs here at Power of X-Men like maybe 2 years ago and was like, I know this sounds really weird, but we have a strong rapport. And this is something that I wanted to make you aware of. I follow you along. I've seen your podcast. I think you and I will get along. And so we've had him on the podcast several times. He and I have written for the New York Post. We talked about astrology and like comics and stuff like that. I literally, Lynn, I have chills right now because the universe brings people together when they need to come together. And my best friend, her name is Jordan Younger. She's a balanced blonde. She's in LA. She's pregnant with her second baby, and so
Yes.
I'm going to LA next week, just to see her, to see Atticus, and to congratulate her on the new star seed. So we have so many friends, like ideas and stuff in
Wow.
common. We need to we need to make
Yeah.
something big and seismic happen because the
Yes.
second the second you popped up on the Zoom for the family at home, um, Lynn is wearing, if you're just listening to the audio of this, Lynn is wearing a pink champs sweater And I always wore my blue one, and I just knew this was going to be an amazing conversation. And I knew something was there. You cannot fake this.
That's awesome. We should do another. Yeah, we should do a trio podcast with Alex, right? Is his name? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to get Jordan on the podcast, but we've been trying to find like a really good seed because she doesn't really read the comic books, and I think there's a lot of spiritualism there. So I'm trying to get Jordan and Kyle. Kyle's been on a few times, but we should do a trio on that and talk about spirituality and get real life gifts because no one talks about real life gifts, and it gets so dismissed early on. I'm sorry, the familia at home is like, wait, we were signing up for Wolverine Origins, but it's this is stuff that just gets marginalized. No one talks about it. And it's so incredibly frustrating because there are talented people out there like you, like Kyle, like Jordan, who really do have an aptitude in being able to coach people in a very crazy world. And this world is crazy and tough.
And I think the way that I've learned to handle this world is like, we're not born with a toolbox. And it's our job and our responsibility, regardless of what happens to us in our childhood, to find a toolbox. And, hopefully, like in your toolbox, the poisonous tools you don't have many of, or you've realized they're poisonous and they're not in there. And you fill it up with we need so much. I mean, like one of the things with all this technology and all these screens, there's three things that are so key. One, actually writing with a pencil or a pen, your own hand on real paper.
So I had a teacher that said you need to write with a hand and pen because that is how evolution dictates our thoughts. This is not natural doing this, even from an evolutionary standpoint. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
And no, let's hammer this home for the familia, right? Because this is important. Smart people watching this need this information, right? We have to help each other. When you get a nugget of information that is resonant with the collective, you have to share it. So writing with your own hand activates a totally different part of your brain than the whole thumb typing or even typing in general. We can't let that part of our brain atrophy, right? That's important. And next is actually reading from pages, not a Kindle, not an actually getting a book, reading that book. And then the third thing is having a intimate relationship with nature, whether you're living in a city or you're living on a farm. Even in New York City, going out, I mean, like, what does the sky look like today? Where can you get a patch of sun? What tree can you have a relationship
Spoilers, with? You can't find a patch of sun today in the city. Spoilers.
Here too. It looks the same. But this, idea of we have to maintain with all of this technology because, right, it's great. It's taking us, we're connected. People can't get away with shit now, which is awesome. All the truths are coming to light, which is awesome. But at the same time, we have to go back to the fact that we're human beings and flesh. We are spirit, so, a soul having this human experience. And those things have to be nourished for mental health to be able to combat how fast things are happening, how emotional it becomes, the overwhelm, all of that. And really it's like where we're headed in this age of Aquarius, right? This is what we're in. We're going in the AI and like what's real and what's not. That reminder to everybody watching, like, come back to the body, come back to the, just the simple basics. Get back to the basics. Have you had enough water? Are you eating enough protein? Are you reading out of real books? Do you take time to write? And do you take time to shut it down so that you can hear your higher self or your soul and its urge and what it wants you to do next, And you're right. These movies, like these comic books, I'm reading one right now where it's just like, it's so deeply spiritual. And it's a reminder that spirituality, it doesn't have to look like going to a church with your family dressed in white or whatever. Your spirituality is as unique as the thumbprint on your thumb, and how you find that connection to your creator, your higher self. It's like the most important part of life. I really feel like it is. And it doesn't get any airtime. This is what I mean. Like we have to create our own toolbox. In that toolbox can be these movies that inspire you emotionally, that inspire you, spiritually. In that toolbox can be those comic books, an image that you can't get out of your mind, but it's expanded your ability to think. This is all part of it, even though we're calling it entertainment and storytelling is it was the shamans who,
Yes.
at the beginning of our cultures, they were the spirit people who had the connection between the unseen realm and the seen realm. And then they would create these stories to connect that group, that tribe, that collective, to help them all connect to that same part of themselves, the soul always goes back to it. So
I- Joan
you
Didion. I
can
remember. I first of all, I love you so much. Like I green
really
pass
fun.
to come on the podcast whenever you want, Lynn Collins. But I'm thinking of Joan Didion
Mm,
with her book The White Album, where it opens up with "We tell ourselves stories to live." And I think that's what these comic books are. I think that's what entertainment is. These are stories that it is an art that resonates with people, and it can be traced back to the Lascaux caves, right? It can be traced back to shamans. It can be traced back to wherever you believe this mitochondrial ancestry we have as humans. But it is so deeply spiritual and rewarding. And one thing that you really said that just nails it for me is like pick up a physical book.
yeah.
And I don't know how to describe it to someone who's much younger to me. Then there is nothing better than like on a gloomy day like today, grab a
Mm,
book, crawl in bed and just read, even if you just read 2 or 3 pages. The thing
wow.
that fills your soul. It is just you can't even describe it. It is truly this idea of spiritualism that transcends language. And I've always been really fascinated by when we hit that spiritual realm, when we hit a place that's beyond ourselves, we transcend language and it's just emotion, it's just feeling. And to get there, that is what is the divine. That is what we talk about with epiphanies and spirituality. I agree. It's not about going into like a church wearing white, these strict rules. It's nothing to do with that. It's about realizing that there's something greater than you, that there is something that is beyond what we can understand. And I think something as simple as just grabbing a book, laying in bed, going outside in nature, trying to find that patch of sun on a gloomy day in the city,
Yeah.
that is where you find it. And it's so hard to explain that to people who are a bit more pessimistic in today's world.
When I love that this is where this has gone, because I feel like, with podcasts and things,
Mm,
I don't have a lot of time to listen. And
yeah,
when I'm choosing to listen to something,
yeah,
I want to learn something that's going to, right, enhance my toolbox.
yeah,
I want tools, and I want something that's going to inspire me. So
yeah.
for you guys watching, like one thing, like I said, we've talked about the fact that I'm 47. I don't feel old, but I can understand that like 47 is not 25. One of the things that I think helped me so much in my life and helps me now, and I would recommend this to everyone, is to have a journal
Yeah.
that, just make one, don't even call it a rule, make one sort of agreement that in this journal, you're going to, at some point in the day, write down something that you've experienced that you love. And just to have like real paper and a pen, get yourself a gorgeous journal. And they're so inexpensive right now because nobody's using them.
Yep.
And beautiful get yourself like a beautiful gold pen or silver pen or whatever, or like a pencil made with like some special lead from who knows where, and allow that journal and that writing instrument to be a luxury where you get to put in something creative every day. And then it can become like really like your best friend, and you write down things, the things that you love. Like I have this thing with my son where in a lot of circumstances of like, what was the rose of that experience, what was the thorn.
Hmm.
Poetry, who's writing poetry right now? I remember like poetry connects you so quickly to your inner self because you're trying to capture, right? What is poetry? Well, I'm having a feeling, an
Hmm.
experience, and I want whoever reads this to be able to experience exactly what I'm experiencing, that gift, right, to someone. So even that's a brilliant exercise. Like if you're in a relationship or with your best friend or a coworker, be like, I wrote this because I was having this feeling, this moment. I want to see, like, when you read this, how do you feel? Like, let's get back to the basics. And I think like a journal is so retro cool. And got my son one for his birthday this year of like, I don't know. Is it retro? What is it?
I don't
It's just
listen.
important.
I'm really knee deep here in the literary scene in New York because again, I used to work in book editing, and I have to tell you, I love poets. I mean, there's nothing better than finding a local like bookstore, finding out who's reading there, especially if it's a poet. Familia at home, poetry collections you see on the shelves, those poets are not getting paid in a traditional way that a book deal goes through. Poetries are usually chapbooks, they're usually a limited run. So these poets are doing it out of love because they feel like they have something to share. And we will get to Wolverine origins in 1 second, but to finish the story really quickly, something as creative. I went to a reading a couple years ago, pre-pandemic, right before the pandemic, and a bunch of my friends who are poets were wanting to do like a really cool project. And so they got Moby Dick and they read it with a clueless vernacular. So they just went up and they're like, "Oh my God, my name is Call Me Ishmael." You know, they were doing the deep Valley Girl accent while reading Moby Dick for an hour. And it was funny. It was off the cuff. It was seeing this creative energy sort of coming in. And the conversation said, how are Clueless and Moby Dick related? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
stuff like that in person, off the cuff, going to words, going to written language, and then translating it to spoken word. It is so hard for people who just don't throw themselves in there to understand how interesting, how thought provoking. And by the way, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I wouldn't tell just anyone to go see a bunch of Brooklyn poets reading, Moby Dick as Cher Horowitz from Clueless. But for those of us who did, you find something funny, you find something otherworldly, and it's so unique. And you really do realize how being in the present matters so much for our spiritual well being.
Yeah. And like you're your
Sorry.
own.
Sorry. I like pitched you and like your entire team. I'm like, oh, we're gonna talk about Wolverine Origins. I only need 30 minutes. We'll have a fun time.
Now we're off. We're
I'm
off the rails.
sorry. I'm sorry.
And it's because this is what's really truly important, like we're our own responsibility. Our mental health is our responsibility. It's not the government's, it's not our parents,
Mm-mm.
right? It's not our partners. It's our responsibility, each and every one of us, to be living our best life. And so much of that comes down to like how creative you are. We are all creative beings. And we're, the other thing, like we were talking about these gifts, like everyone has them. I just happen to have been cracked open very early in life. We're all cracked open at different times.
But that is exactly what everyone who has a gift says. Everyone has that gift in them. That's how you know when people are being authentic because there are some disingenuous people out there, but it's really authentic when someone's like, no, you have that gift as well. That's what my
Yeah.
friend Jordan, the balanced mom, Jordan, since day one that I met her, literally 10 years ago, she looked at me and she's here like, you have something in you. And she is like the biggest one who has this light that emanates from her, right? Like you, like
Yeah.
Kai, like, but it's not about her, it's about the other person. And I love that so much. I love hearing that. Mm.
Right? We could talk about this. This is a different podcast though.
I know. Wait.
Oh,
All right. Let's take it. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but let me hammer out some Wolverine questions. When you
yes.
got how did you
Yes.
get the script? Tell me about how did you got the script? You're being told you're going to step into a comic book movie. What were your initial thoughts on that?
I auditioned
Hmm.
with a casting director.
Hmm.
didn't hear anything, I think for like, I don't know, it was like a big gap. And then I was told I was going to be reading, like, I would say almost 6 weeks later. They
Okay.
were like, "I'm going to read with Hugh Jackman." We had the same agent at the time.
Okay.
And so I read with Hugh, and Debbie was the casting director, I think. And then that was lovely. And then there was like another strange gap of time. And then literally I was told, I think like on a Thursday, you have to be in New Zealand Monday.
Oh my God. Okay.
You got the part, you just that you have to fly like tomorrow.
Okay. I mean,
And you're
why not?
and then
Why
you're
not?
gone for 6 months. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's a great call. Great call.
Yeah.
And we, yeah, went to New Zealand, which I had been to before because Stephen had done 10,000 BC,
Mm-hmm.
which shot at the South Island of New Zealand. And I actually had spent, God, was it my 30th birthday there? I think so. So, like, I was the fact that I got to go back to this little place called Paradise, where most people in their life will never go. And I'm getting to go back. It will be my second time. It was like, this is so just incredible. Um, and then, yeah, we shoot there and then we shoot in Australia, in Sydney, and mostly night shoots because we're in this that big complex of like
Oh yeah.
so we're waking up at like 4 p.m. to shoot all night long to go to bed at like 9 a.m. That's hard. It's
No,
really
it
hard.
was there a lot of like humor on set, at least with those like late nights, because you have, of course, had Ryan Reynolds on set as well, who was doing Deadpool.
So Ryan, it was actually what you see as soon as it's Deadpool, that was a stunt double. So
Gotcha.
the stuff that Ryan shot, I wasn't in.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
when they're like doing like the group guys stuff, right? So I didn't get to interact much with the people I was on set with was like Danny and Liev and Hugh
Mm-hmm.
and the kids, which I would say it was like the opposite. Like the deeper we got into the night shoots, the more that everybody was just like like just trying to like function.
Of course, because it's a job. It's a job. I mean, like we've all been there. Like no one wants to be working till like 4 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I get it.
But it was also like there's memories of it that are so dear to me, even though it was hard because like our then we'd all get in the boat because we were having to take a boat to this island. It was like in the middle of like the Sydney harbor, this weird decrepit thing that we were shooting in. So when we wrap, we're all like back in a boat watching the sunrise as we're heading back to our hotels or
Oh,
apartments
that's
or whatever.
beautiful.
Yeah, like it was a rarefied air.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is the story that you want. I know this is the story that you want.
Give it
Okay,
to me. Give it.
so the script, right? She walks into the ocean
Yeah.
and dies. And of course they end up changing it. The reshoots were that I get shot, and then
Mhm.
it's like a whole thing. That whole death was like the reshoot. So this is actually not a night shoot. So I was happy to be going to work at a decent hour, but we have to take like a ferry, kind of small. This was the day I was like, yeah, this is the day that like I walk into the water. So we're all in the boat going to the destination. I've never seen where we're going to be shooting this. But I'm like, okay, so we're kind of like heading to like this area where like a river goes into the ocean and it's like brackish. And I was like, I watch a lot of nature shows. And I was like, I know sharks breed where the waters meet. We're in Australia. Everything in the ocean wants to kill you. I'm going to have to walk into this water. So I don't ask like Hugh and the producers who are like on the boat, like talking. I go to the man who's driving the ferry and I was like, hey, tell me about this area. Like, Sharks? Oh, mate, this is where they breed, mate. I was like, oh my God, I knew it. Like, I knew it. I knew it. So now I'm freaked out. And I can tell that, like, this changes my demeanor instantly. I'm
Yeah.
no longer like happy to be at work. I'm like, holy shit, nobody's talked me through this. What's going to happen? And so the scene ensues. And they're like, okay, Lynn, that this dialogue happens. There's some drama going on my street.
Yes.
And then you walk into the water, and I was like, well, okay, so how far do you guys? No one planned ahead. How far do you guys want me to walk? Well, until you're under, and then like stay under for a second. And I'm like, how is this gonna work? Like, I don't. So of course, here I am with like all the hair in the gray dress, in the boots, doing the scene. Okay, now I'm gonna like start walking in the water. Well, I walk and then I'm ass up, right? Because you float.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't just walk in, right? So they're like, cut, cut, cut. Like it's my fault. And I'm like, I'm not made of lead. Like,
Yes, you're gonna float up. Yes.
Float.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we need to weight her boots.
Yeah.
Okay, but by the way, I've tried to I'm ass up, like trying to make this shot work. Like, yeah, hair wet, everything wet.
Yeah. So then you have to reset,
like, okay,
right?
totally reset, bring another dress, redo the coif, redo the maquillage, the toxic maquillage. Okay. Now they're like, all right, here we go. Here we go. Boots are weighted. That's all we needed. Let's do this. Okay. Finish the scene. Walk, 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 walk in the boots. But now, not great. At least I'm not ass up. But to go now, it's like to get down. They want me to do like a pole dance move, like do 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 do. Right? I'm like, I ain't got nothing to hold on to. I'm like, even now, can't really stay underwater either. So I'm like, okay, we have to reset again. I need something out there. And please choose scuba divers, because I need to get to where I can hold on to something and then pole dance down to the bottom of the ocean brackish water where the sharks are breeding.
Mating. Like,
breeding. Okay. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to set up 2 scuba divers, because now I'm getting freaked out because I really have to go deep and I'm alone. So this time, reset. There's like a tiny little flag. They're like, it's okay, we can CGI it, but at least you know where you're going. That flag is then the weighted pole that I'm going to dance my way down. And then I'm like, how long do you want me to, once I get down, how long stay down? As long as you can. Like, okay. Go out there, get to the weighting myself a la Ophelia to the pole, grab the pole, like see the flag, grab the pole beautifully, all the way down. And now I'm under. And I'm holding my breath and I'm down, and I get bumped by something.
No.
Like, yeah, like checked by something that hit, and it hits. So if I'm down, I'm crouched kind of like this. It hits me enough that I'm off the pole and I pop up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm screaming. And the scuba divers are coming, and I'm like running out of the water. And I was like, hope y'all got it, because I'm not going back in. You're gonna have to get a stunt person, because I'm not going back in.
You're like,
water.
I'm done with that.
Well, of course, then I'm like, I'm done for the day. I'm like, y'all just make that shot work. Get back on the ferry. He was like, how was it? And I was like, I completely got checked by a shark. I'm almost sure of it. He's like, I would imagine that's what happened. Yes. Because that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
They bump you to see what you are.
Yes. So I love sharks. Sharks are sort of, I'm sorry, this is like a spiritual conversation now between us again. But sharks are beings that I've resonated with, and that's exactly what they do. They bump They're that
Yeah.
is terrifying.
And now here's the thing, my intuition, remember, I had that conversation with that
Yeah.
man and I was like, there's a reason why I'm getting this information.
Yeah.
I need this. This is important that I know this because I knew I was in danger the entire time. And I knew when I got bumped what it was to get the out
Yeah.
as fast as possible. Yeah. So that was
For a
that was
scene that ended up being cut.
oh, didn't even use it.
Did they ever make it into like any of the deleted scenes or post credit? I can't remember. Or not post credit. Any extra stuff. It's never been released publicly.
They should. Oh my God,
Yeah,
they should totally do that. They
we're
should do
gonna.
that for John Carter too. There was a ton in the book. In John Carter, Deja Torres slaps John Carter a lot. Like she's borderline, we're kind of domestically abusive. She's constantly like hitting him and like she's a warrior princess.
Yeah.
So there was that element of like with that character, one of the strongest female characters that had actually been shown at that point in movies. And one of the main reasons we had to do reshoots is because they were like, she's too strong. Like people, test audiences are like, why is she hitting him? Like, why is she so fierce? Like, what? It's so interesting. Like, if that movie came out now, be a no brainer.
It'd
You
be
know
a
what I
no
mean?
brain.
So,
Isn't it so funny how much narratives have changed even from the
yes.
mid 2000s?
It's also what you said about how like everything is trending. Like, this is like a deeper topic, but we had like Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement. And like, I have a friend who's experiencing trying to get, further along in the justice system for a Me Too type of experience. And nobody cares. Like, nobody's caring because that topic trended, peaked. And this is where like this idea of like a movement can actually what I'm starting these conversations I'm starting to have in the last couple of weeks can actually be of detriment to the issue, not purely because of the way our society is so fickle on issues. And that's really scary. Like it shouldn't be a trend or not trend, this Me Too experience, people standing up for themselves, being like manipulated or whatever sexually in a workplace or whatever. That should never go out of season, out of trend.
It should always
Right?
be evergreen. It should be baked into our conversations.
Evergreen. And unfortunately, with this social media, like even just the hashtag itself, there are silver linings to all of this. We're talking about this particularly negative point where this fast paced in one way, right? We talk about staying present. That's what you said before earlier in this conversation. There is this element that's good. That's you're in the moment. What's going on now? What's going on now? But when we lose the support and the legs of issues that must be maintained in their importance, and suddenly because they're not social media trending, then they're no longer important. Now we have a different barometer that's not a good barometer, whether
No.
something is trending in social media, basing its importance on that. So we have some kinks, right? We have some kinks that we're going to have to work out in the next 10 years when it comes to all of this.
I just couldn't agree with you more. One of my biggest pet peeves are people who care so much about an issue that's trending. And then once that's gone, people forget about those conversations and the progress we made in those conversations. And I just want to say I am so sorry for your friend because I have friends too who have been Me Too'd in the workplace. No one cares. No one
Yeah.
cares. No one. All of a sudden, it's not a provocative topic anymore. And this is someone whose career was set back. This is someone who was being marginalized at a time, and there's no real traction or no visibility anymore on this topic. And it's just infuriating because I think once something like this happens, these movements are beautiful, they're wonderful, but it should be a seismic shift in our perspective, in our souls, in how we treat another human being. not
Yes.
just a, oh, I'm going to virtue signal on Instagram or on Twitter. This is something that is going to be present all the time. And I think there are like-minded people out there who it has impacted, but I think the majority of people will forget about something once it's left like that cultural conversation.
Well, this is where I like go back to, you know, we're each responsible, like we're all responsible for how this all goes, right?
Yeah,
This is a collective experience, and where it's heading, we can't blame on anybody else but ourselves. So again,
agree.
I go back to this, like, get a journal. Like I find so much that when we are at our most unhappy is usually when we don't have a creative outlet.
Yeah.
That if we are given in our frustration, in our anger, in our depression, in our anxiety, whatever it is, if we're given a valve to let that energy move out of us, like, it's always better. So this scrolling on this and getting the input is not a creative act. Posting can be a creative act, right? But if you have a journal and a pen,
Do the journal on a bed. Yes.
pencils, yes. Yes, I feel like this is like something that is really, really important, especially with like these younger generations who are coming in with the technology already in place, already surrounding them. And like, we have to be able to, we're all artists, and we have to somehow make sure that they're getting tools and outlets to be that, you know? Hmm.
I love you so much. You are such a I really truly believe in the universe and putting people in conversations when they need to be, because this is stuff that I personally will take this offline that I just needed to hear today.
Oh, I'm so glad. For a reason, right? Divine orchestration.
I love, well, it's so funny. I got the best quote that I ever heard growing up was, if you just stop and listen to the background noise of your life, you hear that divine orchestra
Yes.
carrying you along, and I love it so much.
Yes.
Lynn, just two more questions for you.
Yes, babe.
One, okay. Kayla's sister was rumored to be Emma Frost. Was that
Mm.
ever talked about on set? Were you told this is going to be Emma Frost, or was that something that was sort of done post?
I know we knew that the diamond, yeah, we knew that that's, but they haven't bridged that yet.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Never. I mean, maybe they will. Um, at some, I mean, who knows where all of this is going, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, and then like also like I had so many questions too. I was like, okay, that's her sister. Then who are the parents? And like,
Yes.
and how is Kayla Silverfox part native, but sister that's going to be Emma Frost is like, no, not native.
Yeah. Maybe they were half sisters. But yes, I agree. We all had those questions. We all had those questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that, and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they'll do something. I don't know. It's also like a strange situation where like there was at one point where they were like, because I've done Kayla Silverfox, I can't do any other character. Like, what's the character with like the top hat? She's like the top hat card magician.
Oh, are you thinking that's from DC? That's, oh my gosh, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Why am I forgetting her name? Satana.
Yes.
There we go. Oh my God, you would be a phenomenal Satana.
And I love top hats, right? So I've had some pictures in top hats, and then fans have been like, "Oh, it was Montana,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't think I'm allowed to like. I think once you play a role, they're like, no. It's a very weird situation, but
No, absolutely not. We're starting that petition right now, especially since they're reading. No, I'm sorry. Since James Gunn's in there, you would be a perfect Satana. No, I'm sorry. Whoever
that's
says that,
fun, right?
no. That's, first of all, that's absurd, because Chris Evans has been Human Torch and Captain America, for example.
Interesting.
There we go. Well, okay, wait. So speaking of the future,
Yes.
obviously Deadpool and Wolverine is coming. Rumors
Yes.
are lots of cameos. Is there, I don't know if you can say either way, but is there a possibility?
No, because she dies unless they're going to try to do, which they won't, some sort of back. because so much of the story was like flashbacks anyway. I don't
Hmm.
think so. Nobody's approached me. Um,
It's
I
hateful.
don't know.
We're gonna slide into we're gonna be sending some angry DMs after this. I'm gonna be at the bar editing this episode while like DMing like anyone I can. No. Um, it goes without saying that so many of us in this X-Men familia would love to see you return. You were such a wonderful, wonderful presence on stage. You embodied the character. That's exactly what you wanted. When you saw Silver Fox, who is a fan favorite. And I can only imagine as an actor getting that now that I know, hey, guess what? You got the role. Now jump on a plane to New Zealand, be back in 6 months. And also, you're going to play the love interest, but she's going to be treacherous to
Yeah,
Wolverine. I mean,
yeah,
that is a lot being served to you.
it was. It was really fun. And like I said, with like, but with you, like, he's just such a big, joyful man. And like I said, like right there every step of the way and so supportive and kind. Like, to be honest, you guys, that whole scene where the Kia Kawachu, I'm like in white nightgown and I start my period and it's like everywhere. And he's like totally okay. Like, okay, we gotta change, we gotta like, I mean, that's a juicy bit of information that
Oh, that's it. The internet's broken now.
but like literally like what a nightmare for an actress for something like that to happen. And he was like, it was just so cool. It was like, whatever, we keep going.
I'm
Awesome.
not shocked. I'm not shocked that he's a cool person because you have this beautiful light, and I can see you attracting a scene partner that equally has a beautiful light. So this to me, even an embarrassing situation, I can see it happening the way it did.
Back to like, we're bodies, right? Keeping it real.
And with that, Lynn Collins, where can the familia at home find you? What do you have coming up? We're obviously going to be in the loop on some future endeavors that we are going to talk about extensively, but projects
Yes.
that you're able to ready to talk about, social media, where can folks hit you?
Yeah. So you guys look out for the goodwoo.com. That's going to be a website that is specifically made for fans. So we should be launching, I would say, probably to the wider public in the summer. So excited about that. I also did a movie that's called Someone Like You that is opening in theaters everywhere, I believe April 5th,
Okay.
by Karen Kingsbury, who is a prolific author, also spiritual content. Um, yeah, and then I'm working with some beautiful Irish people on a couple different projects about sort of really cool historical figures who would be in alignment with some of these stronger women you've seen me play.
And your socials? What are your socials?
Lynn Collins on Instagram, and I'm not really active anywhere else. I'm not really a Facebook person, and so just Instagram basically.